With our lab? No, I did not. I don't want you to go by. All right, sorry.
A lot of our people at the moment are on yellow right now. I mean, it's been a little slower.
Yeah. That's all I can move the lawn or something.
Not so much. They just kind of things like more when it's cold and wet. Just and then I move a lot of them, just they'll back.
But it's not like it should be. No, but I mean, it should be in the early.
I am all for us not like something no, that's fine. I get me like own food. So like a Netflix shopping. I know, yeah, it's weird. So yeah. Well, that's so we just keep that in fact, and that's I will, yeah. Our only there's a good beer. Literally, what they do this.
Hey, Greg,
Yes.
you can hear me, I take it.
Yeah. Hey, hi, Tim.
Hi.
Look.
So they can get it right.
Hello, everybody.
So you have,
Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Tim, can you hear us or no? Do we have the mic on, Jess?
Yes, I can hear everybody clearly.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to make sure you guys can hear me too. Thanks.
Test. Test 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 9. Yeah.
no accent.
The meeting is being taped, it's being. Jess, do you have a written one? Thank you.
Oh my God.
It's fine, it's just that. Right. No, it's not on the agenda. Tomorrow, that's on the table. is needed to grow like how.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that. No, not for about, hey, Jessica.
I just had information out there just to make it easier.
Okay, cool. So, citizens concerns kind of, it's mostly for the, to hide.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're good, you're good.
Yes, I didn't know. Are you You succeed?
She turned all the ready
It's very cold.
Yeah.
Especially one boss.
You guys have it. Hi. How are you?
It's like, you know, you can really just twist it. And so, the reason I was like, gotta go to the meeting at 2 and
How you doing? Yes.
And it's different seeing you on this side. It's, no, it's. It's crazy, I'm on the iPad, you can't do 60, right? All this, and I know that when you're, it's 6, so. Sometimes, let's say, you got that, some accounts.
You know, I don't know.
Hey Tim, how you doing?
That's what I'm saying.
Did you ask? No, this will work. It's this one that don't work. And that one down there works.
Yeah.
But that one there works. What is it?
This conference will now be recorded.
That's fine.
Yes.
All right, we still on 3:30? 5:30? Okay. All right, we'll open up this meeting for the council of the city of Port Orford at 5:31. So we call to order additions to the agenda. It's an application, so we gotta have time to look at those.
Yeah.
And because technically that should be looked at by them first anyway. Oh, that makes it tough then. Okay. Okay, so no presentations to the council. Moving on to the consent calendar to approve the minutes of November 18th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for November 18th, 2021.
I'll second that motion. All right, first, second. Oh, Tim is here. I don't see James Garrett, but he is excused. He had some issues with work, so sorry about missing that part. Motion on the table, first and second. Any comments or questions on the minutes? Okay, call for the vote. Greg? Yes. Gary?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Lauren? Yes. And Tim?
Tim, yes.
Hey, it's working. Knock on wood. I shouldn't say that. Yeah, put Tim on the big screen.
Thank you. Just kidding. Just kidding. I cut my hair for you guys.
Very nice.
I hear a lot of laughing in there. I'm sorry.
You missed the spot right down in here.
I'm sure I did.
I don't have the biggest head on the videos anymore. All righty then, moving on. Okay, citizen concerns, please remember to speak only on the agenda items. So do we have any? Oh, yeah. I forgot about this list. We're doing it in person.
Forgot about the list.
Is there anybody on your list for? All right, is there anyone online that would like to speak on old or new business items on the agenda? Oh, yeah, go right ahead. Sorry, we're getting back to these real meetings, yeah.
Yes, well, my name is
I have all
Ann
these
Belisis.
stories now.
I hope you can hear me through this
Yeah.
because I pinched it closed in the back. I'm going to be speaking today as, my name is Ann Belisis, and I'm speaking today as president of the Kalmiopsis Audubon Society. Our group has 400 members in Curry County and about 100 in Port Orford, and I wanted to speak to two items on the agenda. The first one is, I know that you had mentioned you wanted this on the agenda last time, and it's under the liaison report, which is the lamprey restoration, and there were some letters in the packet about this. So I just wanted to say, I think this is a really great proposal that deserves your support. One of the cool things that I think we've learned through this is that lamprey actually in their, one of their juvenile forms are essentially filter feeders. And so they can actually help us to make our water cleaner, which is really cool. I didn't realize that. Owing to the really thoughtful and resourcefulness of our watershed council, we have the opportunity to do this for free because they've located funding from another old project. And I just think it's the right thing to do to help restore this animal. So anyway, I think it's a really cool opportunity where we can do something right and have it help us. So I hope that you guys will move forward with that opportunity. I also wanted to speak to the agenda item, which is enforcing the dark sky ordinance. And this is a difficult one because it's a particularly difficult instance that has been going on for a long time. But I just wanted to encourage you to move forward with enforcing the ordinance, because it's something that many people in the community care about and worked hard on. And we wish that the person would just go along with the community interest and do it right. But since they're not, I hope that you guys will consider enforcing it and that we can move forward and do board education and get people on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, what do I do when it doesn't run out to the next person? Oh, thank you, Ann. Oh, and I did not make you state your name and address. You probably don't have to get up for that, but I was gonna catch you.
I did state my name, but I did not state my address,
Sorry.
which is 608 Oregon Street, Ann Belisis.
Thank you.
608.
Such a stick. All right, would anyone like to else? Oh, you're on the list.
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes. Please say your name and address.
My name is Miranda Gray. I'm the coordinator for the South Coast Watershed Council based in Gold Beach. And we are a council representing all of Curry County of representative watershed interests and users. And I would also like to, on behalf of the council, voice my support for the Lamprey Passage Restoration Project. Can you all still hear me?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, the council has been looking into ways to retrofit that dam passage for salmon for, I think, more than a decade now. So the option that's presented here is a low cost alternative to some of the other options that the council has been looking at for many years, and would obviously help restore passage just for lamprey, but as Anne spoke to, is a very critical species to our watersheds.
Understood. Was that all? Hello?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Oh, I wanted to make sure that you were done, and I also forgot to ask for your address as well.
Sure. Yeah, that's it. My address is 29692 Ellensburg Avenue.
Thank you.
Old Beach.
Thank you.
97444.
All right. Hybrid meeting. So I got confused. This is, if that's the land is going to be under a departmental report, it's not an item.
Yeah, it's under liaison. Because it's called watershed.
Okay.
Are we gonna be able to make a motion tonight without it being on the agenda?
It's not something that.
It's not an action item.
Yeah, that's the problem, is it's just kind of an information.
Okay.
What my understanding was.
Yeah, I mean, one of my big questions is the timeline. So why don't we put it under 8E? And we'll, just in case we need to talk about it a little bit or move forward with something, because I have some questions that I don't want to slow anything down. And then maybe we can have them come back and do a presentation at the start of the meeting rather than a liaison report about this one thing.
Yeah.
So sorry, I missed that on the agenda. Right. Okay, yeah, I remember that at some point earlier this week. So got it. So that's 8E now, and sorry about that. Tom?
No problem. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, so Tom Calbanese, and my address is 630 Kitchener Street here in Port Orford. Mayor Cox, councilors and staff and guests. And I too am speaking on behalf of, in support of the Pacific Lamprey Passage structure at the Hubbard Creek Dam. And I want to make note that this would be a collaboration with Dr. Stuart Reed of Western Fishes, excuse me. I should mention I'm speaking today in my capacity as a fisheries biologist working for Oregon State University as the manager of the Port Orford Field Station. And one of the ways that I would like to support the project is to partner with Dr. Reed and others to ensure the project is carried out in accordance with proper practices. I know Dr. Reed has conducted similar projects in other places that very successfully and in collaboration with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I guess I just want to say a couple things about these amazing creatures. They've been around for 400 million years. I mean, they predate the dinosaurs. So, you know, who are we to not give them away to get home when it's time to get up the river? Anne mentioned a few things. They're important members of our aquatic ecosystems. I think you also have a letter from Cassie Rippey from the Coquel tribe. They are also important in terms of medicine and culture and sustenance to Indian tribes. They filter sediment. They're a food source when they're larvae and also as adults. And when they die, they return nutrients to the system, just like salmon do. Unlike salmon, they need smooth surfaces because they basically have a big sucker mouth and that's how they move. So they can't really deal with 90 degrees. And that's why we need that kind of simple kind of ramp for them to go up. It's a pretty straightforward project as I understand it. And those populations could use our help. So I think I've said what I need to say. I really appreciate the time. I hope that you can take it up as an action item at your earliest convenience. And in the end, it'll make our creek healthier as well. So thanks for your time and have a good meeting.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, anyone else? All right, moving on. Departmental reports. John, Public Works.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I don't really have anything other than what's in my report. If there's questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions for John? I don't really have a question, John, but go ahead, Tim.
My only question was, there was a sinkhole down the road at Highway 101 in Port Orford Loop. I'm assuming that was a water line going to no, okay. So can you educate?
You're talking in front of Salty Dog, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
it turns out that was it looks like an old abandoned septic tank or some type of holding tank that collapsed and just happened to have our service line to that building running right through the middle of it. So to help the property owner, we filled it with gravel so it wasn't such a safety hazard, and then made recommendations to look into it further by maybe having it excavated out or cleaned and then filled and leave it in place, abandoned in place. But there's an old drain line that appears to be septic to me, and maybe it was cut off in the back of the building, and then as water leached into it, it washed it out. So it's not a city utility, and it wasn't a DOT or ODOT drainage facility. So the only thing I can guess is we found about a half of a 3-foot around lid in the bottom of the hole, and it was about 6.5, 7 feet deep. So we filled it with gravel this evening just to make it safe, and then I communicated with Diane, I think is her name, of how she should proceed.
Thank you, John, for helping that business owner out. Quite alarming to come across a hole like that. I did see our service line in there for her property, and I just assumed that it was leaking, but thank you for letting me know. I appreciate it. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Let me touch on one thing, Pat, before you rake me over the coals. So we've talked a lot about water restrictions and curtailment plans and all this other stuff. So I'll tell you the situation we're in this week, just so maybe you guys have a better idea. We all thought we were out of the woods because of the water and the rain and everything. We've ran, today is the second day since Saturday that we've actually made water. We were down to 10 feet and we had about 2 days worth of water left by the time the Hubbard's cleaned up enough for us to start making water today. So just want everybody to know how important it is. We really got to look at what we're hooking up and how many we're hooking up, because I tell you, we had 2 days worth of water left this morning when we were able to get back online, and it was trial and error all day long to actually make the water clean enough to treat. So just want you guys to know that just because we have rain doesn't mean we have water making capabilities, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Well, that's almost worth too, because there's not a whole lot of curtailment that can go on. If you're losing, you're going to be losing the same that you are. So it's almost a more important angle. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because when we were going to talk about the curtailment, I was trying to figure out how we could work that in, because that's just, so did that, well, I guess, yeah, the timeline's probably right, but did that change with the contact tank? Like, did that change the parameters of how, like, I'm not that it does the flow of what we can pump, but we're not having to do anything preemptively that's slowing our production, are we?
Well, yeah, we're still stuck with the slow 256 gallons a minute because the finished water pumps haven't been upgraded yet, and we haven't done another water survey to see what our contact time is yet. We did go through the water survey. I want to say it was back in September. I haven't touched on it a lot, but I will just real quickly. We didn't have a lot of deficiencies, and the guy thought that we could probably come up, but until we do another study and get our chlorine levels, once we run the survey and we know what our chlorine levels are, then he'll tell us how much we can go up. But in order to do that, both those finished water pumps need to be replaced so we can actually pump at the desired demand. So we're not there yet. We're still waiting. The vendors, I mean, parts are getting really hard. They're 3, 4, 6 weeks out, 8 weeks out. It took 2 months to get the parts I just ordered or that just received. It took over 2 months to get them, and that was just your normal curb stops and street connections. So we're having a real problem with supply and demand on parts.
I understand. I guess I was just making sure that contact system didn't change our filtration to where that, you know what I mean? Because we haven't been able to pump for so many days, which I know we've done in the past too, but that, you know, it's just 2 days and 5 is kind of normal, but that's all I'm checking on.
Yeah, it's the first time since I've been here where we couldn't make water for 4 or 5 days. I mean, usually it cleans up within a couple of days, but the amount of water we had and the silt that came off of that, the watershed, I guess I should say, out of North and South Fork was just so muddy that it turned Hubbard's into a mud pie. So yeah, 3.5, 4 days to clean up, which it normally doesn't take that long. So we're seeing a lot of sediment influx into Hubbard's, which is dirtying the pond, which then we can't make water.
Yeah, understood. Anyone else have questions for John?
There's no kind of system for filtering out sediment. It'd be a really
no, there is, and that's something we kind of need to look at and figure out what the cost would be. We need to figure out how to do maybe some large rock in 3 or 4 different layers to stop the sediment migration into the pond, slow it down basically. There's ways to do it, and there's a cost to it, and that we need to figure out, but there's definitely ways to try to keep the sediment out of the pond.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
You got any questions for us?
Nope, just Merry Christmas and hope everybody has a great holidays.
Oh yeah, you too.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
I forgot about that. Okay. We are moving on to Port. Port is doing really good. It's nice to see a bunch of happy people around there. Started on the December started on at the right time for the first time since 2014. since 2014. The price is good, and the weather held out for the first couple of weeks, and their price is still good, and they're still have good numbers. So the port's doing great from that aspect. We're still waiting on some news for funding, but it's that time of year where news travels fast. But the important news is that that crowding season is going well. And all right, moving on to the school district.
The school district has completely finished the track up at the high school. And so they're actually, when the weather allows, they're actually be able to start getting outside and using it. They're going to put a similar track, not quite as wide, at the elementary school. So they can use it more because it's getting muddier. I don't know if it's more rain, I don't know what it is, but the people who did the track up there in high school made them an offer they kind of couldn't refuse. It's not going to be as wide, it'll probably only be 3 lanes, but it'll be where the kids can run all the time and do their stuff. And we are up to 254 students.
That's good. That's the numbers we like to see. Right. Okay, thank you, Lauren. Tim, anything from TLT?
Not currently. I know Jessica's been working on trying to get some more members to join TLT. So once again, I'll mention to the folks that are out there listening, if you would like to volunteer for the TLT committee, I believe she needs at least 3 other people, and it's only about a 2 or 3 meeting process, 4 at the most. So it would be a great way to get your feet wet and kind of join in on part of the process here in Port Orford. So we'd appreciate any volunteers that are available.
This is Janice Anthony. What is the TLT or TLC?
TLT is transient lodging tax. So your motels and RV parks and vacation homes, they have to pay a percentage of their ring to the city, and the city uses a lot of that money to cover costs at the visitor center and other tourist type areas in Port Orford. And they also give out about $10,000 in grants to different organizations to do beautification and tourism promotion in Port Orford. And they also give out about $10,000 to, I believe currently Main Street is the advertiser for Port Orford. So they advertise our beautiful area to folks that like to come here and spend money and prop up the local businesses.
Thank you for that. I will, Jessica, I will send you an email. I'd be happy to volunteer for that.
Thank you.
Awesome. That was really good. Okay. That sounds like a great committee. There's like tangible things that you can see at the end that you've accomplished. Wow. All right, moving on. Parks, great.
Parks had we were the first meeting last week, was really nice in person. So we had a good meeting. It was all 7 of us. We have our park fundraiser is going on for the playground. Currently, I think we have over $3,500 in donations here, plus what we have on like Facebook. So we're roughly probably a little over $5,000 totally right now. I think 10,000, a little over 10,000 of the 60, and we've only started last week. So we have another fundraiser this weekend with Gary Burns and Commissioner Frazier. So it'll be good. We should be good. And moving forward, it looks like we're going to try to take over the A-frame in the end of February, March, and move forward with that. So.
Okay, Main Street.
A dining and arts guide similar to the 2019 issue is being planned by board member Julie Hawthorne and graphic designer Becky Raymond. Letters have been handed out to the galleries and restaurants seeking donations to help cover the cost of the printing, the design and printing. A $750 grant from
So very sorry, but we can't hear you. Is your mic on?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it's the math. Sorry.
A $750 grant from Curry County Cultural Coalition has been awarded. A new feature will be phone numbers for services, churches, flat tire repair, car repair, clinic, veterinary services, etc. A spring 2022 publication is expected. A new design for the Ocean View sign by Arts Council member Becky Raymond and Kat Woods of Not Just Art, featuring a whale's tail, is in the works. You all have a copy of that design. Main Street Board chose it from 6 suggestions. Paint may be donated by Gold Beach Lumber. When weather is suitable, it will be painted on the street. Vicki Young was now Chief Administrator for the online community calendar. Printed weekly versions will be in the post office and at the library. It's experienced much interest and use in the last 2.5 months since it's launched. It's really a neat tool for the community. Port Orford News, seeing the online community calendar as a competitive threat to its existence, will no longer publish Main Street articles. But Main Street will continue its online efforts to promote its projects through local Facebook groups and a pending update to its website. The city mandated tourism TLT expenditures. Board members Karen Copeland and Terry Grimes researching options for spending Port Orford's tourism budget. They've contacted Julie Miller of Travel Southern Oregon Coast and Bessie Hand of Media America, and are honing in on options delivering the most bang for our buck. They will present a final plan when the city verifies the dollar amount available. And we've already approved, due to deadline considerations, a 4th-page ad in the 1869 Oregon magazine recommended by Michelle Duarte, and we spent $950 for that.
Thank you. Hey, Gary, that's just a request, but would you have a nice report like that in the future? Would you mind printing it out and sending it to us? Not that I don't want you to read it or anything like that, but just so I can assimilate it better. All right, so that was Main Street Watershed. Is that going to be you, Carolyn, or Linda?
Linda's
Or both?
here, but it mainly was on the lamprey and getting the forest management done.
Okay, so, okay. Yeah, well, because so much stuff is going on, but we'll get back in the habit of hearing it from Carolyn too. It is convenient though, especially when it was the Zoom meetings and everything, but
Right.
yeah, let's hear what you have to say.
So I was prepared for the lamprey to be an agenda item,
Okay.
because last meeting you said we should put this on the agenda.
Right, and I saw in the packet, and so, yeah, and it is now, it's under new business.
Okay.
So,
I'm basically echoing everything that the other folks have said, Tom and Ann.
Right.
But perhaps I could give you the more details on it. The work would happen in late summer or early fall. That's when the water levels are low. Stuart Reed has looked at the reservoir and says there's very good habitat up on the upper reaches of the reservoir and in the tributaries. He feels that it's really easily compatible with any dredging that would have to happen, because that would be closer to the dam. And as you know, the filter feeding aspect of the lamprey would be very advantageous for sedimentation. When he did the survey, I told him there's going to be repairs done on the dam, and he said he can come back and do a look at it again, and he feels quite confident that he can do something compatible with whatever repairs happen. And as was mentioned before, this is being done at no cost to the city. We're able to use funding that the Applegate Watershed Council had left over from a project that Dr. Reed did. So they're donating it to us. The only cost to the city would be some staff time. It would be really good to be able to collaborate with John Isidore to make sure that,
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to put it on a quick agenda item, and so I'm sure we'll be picking your brain a little bit, but there's no real action that we'll be taking, I guess, but at least we'll be able to ask a few questions back to you that help the process along the way.
Okay.
So we won't ask you any questions right now. Oh, sorry. We won't ask you any questions right now. Sorry to interrupt there.
Okay. And then the only other things that are really positive that are nice to report is that we're moving forward with the forest management plan. And we have, a goal of April to get the application in for the Source Water Protection State Revolving Fund loan that half of that amount will be forgivable because of it being a green project and also our median income. And that's a very good thing to shoot for April. It might need to go until June because we have to have the forest management plan in before we can have a complete application for that funding. There's a person who, his name is Ben Hayes. He works with a group called Springboard Forestry who does forest management for the city of Astoria. He's very interested in doing this forest management plan, bidding on it. Of course, it'll have to go through Business Oregon and have a bidding process. And Jessica is going to be working with Tawny Bean at Business Oregon to make sure we do that bidding process correctly. What's wonderful is that he is very familiar with the criteria needed for that forgiveness under a green project, and also for any future management practices. We might need funding in the future to be able to carry out the proper management for source water protection. So he understands all that criteria that needs to be in our plan so that we can then apply for future funding for that.
Understood. Thank you. We might call you back in a little bit.
Okay.
Thanks, Linda.
Gary, emergency management?
We're still getting emergency brochures of all different kinds. I've talked to the library and Coast Community Health, and they're going to provide space for brochures. And we'll be looking for as many places in town as we can find to kind of keep that word out all the time about different aspects of preparing for emergencies. And we're starting to talk about tsunami signs and figure out how many we might, look at spots that they should go and just put a lot of them up, maybe. So it just keeps it on people's minds, and they see the routes every day. And that's it for now.
Understood. Yeah, I just blew by administration and finance, planning. Then I skipped and, okay. Anyway, so we're going to move back to B, administration report.
Well, I think everyone has their report that I submitted in this. Does anyone have any questions? Just make it a little bit easier.
Looks like we got some good stuff on this year.
Yes, we're gonna open City Hall based upon January 1st. I just thought it'd just be easy to start the new year. So we're gonna open City Hall back to the public January 1st, the first Monday, working Monday of everything. And in the TLT applications, we did have another one that we received right before this meeting. So, but we're still obviously looking for some Tim, so. And obviously everyone just keep in mind Patty's last day is the end of this month. She doesn't want anything big, any big parties or anything like that. But if you want to stop by and just wish her luck in her retirement, I'm sure she would appreciate that.
Sounds like we should do a big party.
I know. I know. She's already said she wouldn't show up, so there you go.
Surprise party. If you don't know about a surprise party, then
Yeah.
it starts at the meeting.
Yeah, exactly. For the emergency management planning, actually, right before the meeting, I got an email with regards to a grant available for seismic, do like a seismic measurement on the emergency services for, so it would be the police department and the fire department. City Hall would not be included. However, we would have to physically pay for only City Hall because it's the one whole building, so it'd have to be in the scope. We could do the grant for the other two portions, but our portion, the other side of the administration side would not be included in the grant. So that was this afternoon, we found that out, so.
Okay. Any questions on administration report? Okay, moving on to finance then. Also pretty cut and dry.
Hey, Pat.
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that James Garrett is here now.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see him, so.
No, I didn't. All I see is you, Tim. You and then this little corner. Okay, there we go. James. Hey, James.
Hello.
Hi, James.
Hi, Tim.
How does the audio sound, James? Does it sound okay for you?
Yeah, it's pretty decent.
Okay, sweet. That's better than it was before.
I think the biggest thing in the finance report was that we received the reimbursements for the Ocean View paving project back. So that was pretty nice. That was a nice little thing that we got. And then the property tax revenues came in November too. So that was a good, nice little uptick too.
What are we at for the tickets? Do you know?
Yeah, well, as of the other day, so for the citation stuff, we have a revenue contract in here with the Department of Revenue for you guys to look at. But so far, we've collected a little over 61,000 of the outstanding old citations and cleanups, basically. But that is collections only on that portion. So, yep.
Okay. All right, so now we move on to the planning report, which, we have the letter from Jessica in here, but this is, the issue about, well, I guess if I say something wrong, I say something wrong, but there's a lot of people here to talk about a tower, a building, application that was submitted, but we didn't put it on the agenda because it's not an action item yet. It's not a reality. It's going in for review. At the very, very least, we have established that it is going to go through planning because of the nature of it. And it could come back to us because of that. And that's why we can't really talk about this or show this letter or do that. Of course, we're going to get letters, and of course, we're going to be talking to people in a town of 1,000 people, but we can't do it here as a group because we have to stay unbiased, obviously. Yeah, obviously, we're going to get a lot of public comment, and I don't want it to seem like we are not wanting to hear that, or we're trying to, keep people from speaking. I'm just saying it's not on the agenda because we can't talk about it yet, but we will as soon as we can. And it sounds like the developer is amiable to having some public outreach and talking with people. So there is an opportunity for that, which is good, but I just can't say much about it because Shayla probably thinks I said too much already, but, so
I'm gonna.
please, yes.
Okay, I'm gonna talk to Mike. So actually, as council members, if the application lands in front of you based upon a decision that the planning commission makes below you, you really don't want to have sort of ex parte contact with community members. It's supposed to land on your desk fresh, because you will be asked whether or not you've had ex parte contact with people in the community and whether or not you have any biases or things like that. So you really want to not engage in the subject until it's properly before you. It needs to go through the land use process, which starts with our planner and then trickles up through the planning commission and then gets to you.
Pretty much what I said. Thank you. Okay, so any questions on the planning report that we can talk about?
Just a simple
that here?
Sure.
You say it's going to planning,
I'm sorry, just so we have it.
Yeah.
just a quick question on your comments. You say it's going to planning. Does that mean that the planning commission will have an open public process about this proposal?
Not necessarily, no.
There will be a review.
Will it be up to the planning commission whether or not to have an open public process about the proposal?
It will first go to our planning director for her review, and then if she makes the determination that it goes to the planning commission, that's in her wheelhouse to do.
So when you say it's going to planning, you don't mean the planning commission. What she's saying is that means it's necessarily only going to the planning director.
Correct, and then she will make the determination whether to send it up to the planning commission based upon the type of application it is.
And I did speak out of turn when I said that, because it is an assumption from conversations I've had, but it is not a fact yet that it is going to go to planning or that it will be moved on to planning. I can't honestly tell you that yes, it will be, just that all the signs point that way, and I'm 99% sure that at the very least it will be going to planning for review, passed on by the planning director. So, and this conversation would probably help that too, because of the nature of passing it on and of what's going on. I'm tripping more and more over myself. Boy, this is fun sometimes. Okay, so that is liaison reports. Oh, I missed you for fire district, James.
I don't have anything to report on the fire district other than to reiterate what I said last time. The new year is coming. Good time to have a New Year's resolution to volunteer. We need, anybody, even if you can't fight fires, anybody can be helpful to the fire department in their own way. So if you're willing to volunteer and commit a few hours a week, then I would get a hold of Dave Johnson not Dave Johnson, Dave Duncan, yes, and see about joining. They could use the help. So that's it.
Thank you, James.
Just one comment on that. Just one comment. If you have different groups that are looking for volunteers, could you put it in the minutes so that we can find the contacts for those people?
Yes, we will put that in the minutes, and I will request that we put Dave Duncan's contact information in the minutes.
Got it. And we can put something on the website too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good idea. All right, so now we're moving on to seasonal gas tax. This is a continuing conversation that we've been having. It is kind of getting to be a timely thing too, like our window is closing. It looks like 2 cents is the best number as far as the rules and as far as making it streamlined and not having to go through a lot of extra steps. So I guess we're kind of getting to the point where we just make the call if we want to put this on the ballot or not, or if we think we have time. Because have we answered the question, are we picking on someone since there's only one gas station, or is that pretty standard? I know the port has gas and there's a card lock, so
yeah,
it's probably not picking on someone.
Right. That's exactly right. But
And then the one other question that I haven't got the answer yet on for certain is do we want to sell this as a project, like we are implementing this gas tax to do this? Or are we just going to say, we're going to do this gas tax for road repair, which realistically would go into payroll?
Well, as if you've read the report that Councilor Garrett put in, it says that the more direct the project is, the more likely that people will buy into it. Right. If it's some amorphous, we're just going to use it for sidewalks and streets sometime somewhere.
Right.
They don't go in for that. So the more specific it is, the more likely it will pass.
I totally agree. Carolyn, do you?
Yeah, I do.
Agree with that line of thinking, Gary, Greg? That makes, and then, James and Tim, that makes sense to me. So that means that the big thing we need to do with this timeline is come up with a feasible project. I mean, we have to kind of ballpark what we think it will be, lowball it, and then try to find a project that fits so that if it does work, then we have something on the other side and we can perpetuate it. So that would, the only thing that would come to an end though, so we would have to do another ballot in the future for a project. But if we get successes under our belt theoretically, then we're going to be able to keep that going.
And sunsetting projects always also seem to be winners. In other words, we're going to do this for 2 years and we're going to build this bridge, or we're going to use the money to repair the roads that were tore up maybe by the new sewer system or something like that.
Right.
And so, and then they pass it again because people now have seen the fruits of their of the money that we put in.
Do we have a ballpark number on how much revenue we think we could bring in for this at 2%?
Not right now, not yet, but what we can do is I can talk to John, Public Works, and we can get a list of projects that would be good for around town.
Perfect.
And then the January meeting, we can present those and I can have that 2% and then we'll have the draft.
Perfect. At least it'll be close.
Yeah.
And we can be low on the project cost and
Yeah.
just make sure we're close. So-
Yep.
And then okay, so that makes it seem like feasible then. Like, yeah, 3 months is timeline. If we get the project or we know the money, then we're just making a motion to move forward with the.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
any other discussion?
I'm just guessing, Steve, I think James had mentioned that if we'd had a 3 cent, that he approximated $9,000.
No, okay.
So it'd be probably 6,000 for 2 cents, based on that.
So that could be, yeah.
A lot of potholes.
If we fix a lot of potholes, that would do better for the city council than anything we've done in a long time. So that's probably the best thing we can sell it at, but we'll talk to John first. Boy, that's exciting. James or Tim, do you have anything you want to add before we move on?
Hey, Pat, the only thing I suggest is the sooner we identify a project, and I'd be working, I guess, with our public works superintendent, John, which knows the roads better than most of us driving around on them every day. If we can identify a project right away, the sooner we can move forward on this, because the sooner we move forward, the sooner we get it out there that we need a project that may or may not work with, when a paver's in town. And that's when we're going to get our best bang for our buck, is when a paver happens to be here doing something else and we can combine this with that job and we get it done about half the price that we would if we just called them in to do a street or two. So that's the only thing I have.
Agreed. Yeah. Okay, so we'll talk to John and James. What do you got?
So in conjunction with what Tim said, when I had first proposed this, although a project list was the idea, it wasn't to be confined to a project specifically because of the extreme small amount that we're going to get every year. We may have to save up for even the smallest of projects for several years. As Gary said, at 2 cents, we're expecting approximately $6,000. So, I don't know how much can be done with $6,000, but then if we went 4 years and saved up, then we've got a chunk of change to do something and whatnot. My suggestion had been to simply create a list of items in the order that we think they need to be addressed by priority, but not to necessarily commit the gas tax to that. We have to keep in mind that we're trying to draw off money from people who are traveling through more so than our local citizens, and whatnot. So we're hoping to gain some more benefit off that. But I'm good with it. However we want to proceed. Just keep in mind that it's going to be a small amount every year.
Yeah, and that is a point, because you could say this is going to be for 3 years. You know what I mean? If we had a $20,000 budget or $25,000, because we do want it to be substantial. But, and that brings me to another issue is how do we quantify if we're taxing our citizens more or people that might be filling up when they come by? Which, and I'm not, I'm just being the devil's advocate because there's gas stations on either side of us half an hour away. But
I do not think they do abandon. I'm pretty sure they do not.
Okay, but that is a good point, is that we could stretch it out for a few years, so we need to talk to John, we know that.
Yeah.
We know, we'll make sure it's around 6,000 on the 2%, and then we will continue this conversation. Because that is a point of contention I can see right now, is do we want to have it open-ended, or do we want to kind of zero it in? So that's one of the things we need to think about. And it's all about selling for the elected James.
Keep in mind that because this is a gas tax, we are restrained as to what we can do with it. It's already been pre-designated by the state that we can only use it for things like sidewalks, roads, etc. So it's already safe from being used for any other purpose. And so the public doesn't have to worry about us deciding that, we're going to take this money and, go do some random thing with it. It has to be used for the specific projects outlined as acceptable by the state.
I guess I'm not as trusting of a citizen as you are, because if it just goes into the road fund, then it's an ambiguous thing that could go into payroll or this or that.
It can't go into the road fund. It has to go into a specialized fund because that it's coming from a tax source.
So it's just going into a specialized fund for what?
It's going into its own fund. It's a gas tax fund, and that's
Okay, so it's a gas tax fund.
Yes, a different line item. So it's just like parks has their own fund and everything else. So it's going to be a whole nother.
But it's still the same thing, though. You're still populating a line item with money that we don't like. So we're just going to put it. That's what we're trying to establish. That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. Is what are we going to tell people that this tax is gaining them? We're going to have more money in our gas tax fund that we then transfer to the road fund?
No, it doesn't get transferred at all. It stays in gas tax, and whatever is used to do with that money, the fund, whether the roads get done or anything like that, is taken directly out of that fund. So that it's just a straight. It's just fund accounting, basically, if that makes sense.
Carolyn.
Yeah, it's going to take at least 2 years to get enough money to do much of anything. So having a stop date on it would be like 10 years.
To be substantial, and then in 10 years, it'd probably be twice as much to do whatever you want.
But it can be stopped before then, if we get all the roads repaired and stuff done. And it should be strictly for roads.
Right.
Nothing else.
And so it does, but because it's in that fund, it does have only specific things to be paid for.
It's just like the SDC fees are in their own fund, and they're specifically can only be gone. So it's just going to be.
When you look at our financials, it's like sewer, water, street fund, payroll, back of country.
Yeah.
So that's what always makes me wonder, like, where is that going?
No, like James had said, it's very specific. The League of Oregon Cities actually has a very good manual that they have for us. And so we just work with setting up the own fund and then following all the rules that they have for the accounting rules, at least.
So really, we're gaining a lot of information here. We know it's 6,000 is 6,000, but what's it cost for the election? 1,200, was it?
I think that's pretty close to what it was. Yeah, it's around there.
So that's only a one-time thing, though. But this is worth moving forward with, even though we know it's going to take us 10 years to get there. So maybe thinking of a particular project isn't the right way to think because of the small amount of it. So maybe the question is, do we want to put a 2 cent gas tax on the ballot, and that's where we're at? And that's what we need to do, is just write the resolution to move forward with that. James?
Another reason why we shouldn't constrain ourselves too heavily to a specific project is that we want to be smart about the use of the money. We can use this money to match with other grants and stuff like that. So like if a grant became available, it would be smart to tackle it rather than to say, no, we want to stick with the project we have outlined. If a grant for a different project became available that was also needed. So we got to try to, we're a small community. We have to keep every option open we can. And I do understand the hesitation about having open-ended money, but being that it is safe and can only be used for specific purposes, I would say we save it up until we can match for the grant and double or triple our money.
I agree with all of that. We just have, the first step is selling it. And so if we think we can sell it for 2% to put into this fund to do these type of projects, then that's what we're doing. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's on the agenda. Someone could make a motion right now to move forward. What's that?
I guess my question would be though, is what about the gas at the port? Would that be included in this? That's the catch-22. I think that's the question that I have. Do we want to do? Yeah.
Technically, I probably should.
I know.
Chime in on this
I
one.
think it was just going to be the Chevron station.
Okay, I
I'm
was
pretty
thinking
sure.
the same thing. I just wanted to be clear when I finish writing this, that we're all on the same page, I think, is my question.
Hey, Pat, I have some input.
That most of the boats don't put wear and tear on the road.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So the input I have is reading through all this information about tankers bringing in gas and all that stuff. We're just going to target the Chevron station and we're not going to target the card lock, it looks like. And I do understand the port. I mean, obviously that's kind of like an off-road diesel that's used in the ocean. Those folks don't typically use our roads. I get it. So where this money is going to work the best is, I'm going to use this as an example. So the county came to us last year and they said, hey, look, we're paving Port Orford Loop until Mather Drive. Would you like to have from Mather Drive into the Highway 101 paved while we're here? We can do it much cheaper, if you'd like to join in. So David was able to find the money to do that stretch of Port Orford Loop, which is about it's a little over a half a mile. And that was real close to about $100,000. Now, years ago, Terry got a grant to do Ocean View, and that just got paved. And of course, we just got reimbursed. And if I remember correctly, Jessica can correct me, I think that was around $80,000. And I don't know what you call that, about 2 blocks. So you can see, 2 blocks versus a half a mile, you can see the difference in what we pay in those kinds of things. But a lot of this is probably going to tie into when the counties in our area and they call us up and they say, hey, we're going to do this road. Would you like to pave the rest of your city road with it? And it's going to be it'll be a great advantage to us, even though it's only 6,000. In a few years, you have 20,000, and it might only be 20,000 to pave a block or two if the county's already here doing the work. So like you said, Pat, we have to just decide how we sell it to the public.
I don't know how many angles we have on that.
And 2 cents is 20 cents for a 10 gallon tank. So it's not very much money to the person spending it.
Adds it up all year, though.
It adds up.
It adds up. What's that?
Yeah.
Right. I know, but there's people that are already paying taxes for the city. That's a different discussion.
Okay, so why don't I just go to John, get a list of different projects that we can do so that we can kind of have an idea of things that we can do. And then the next city council meeting will have the rest of everything completed and a list of projects, and we can kind of go from there.
And I'm sure I've seen it, but we have that list of specific things that can be used.
Yeah, it was in the
for
city council packet last time.
That's what I
For
thought,
the-
okay.
Yeah, yep.
We put it on as an action item so we can make a motion at the next meeting.
I think so, yeah, I just want to be done with it, and yeah,
2% or 2/5.
yeah,
And then we'll-
let's see. Well, really, I mean,
we can go ahead.
we don't need to wait and see what the projects are. The money's not gonna change. I don't want to rush anything, but we've been talking about this for months. So if someone wanted to make a motion to put a 2% gas tax on the next ballot, then we could move forward.
I'll
with
make a
that
motion
process.
to put 2 cents on the next ballot for a gas tax.
I'll second that.
Okay. Got a first and a second. What am I missing? We have any discussion on that, or is that about the long short of it?
Well, don't we need to just, I mean, we need to have some kind of wording about what it's gonna be used for. It just can't be, we're gonna have a gas tax.
No, that's why, like, that's what that special line item, gas tax line item is for, and that will explain what it will be used on, the parameters for it, as far as sidewalks, road.
I think he might have meant the wording for the ballot. We do have to come up with a short and long description of the gas tax for the ballot and whatnot. But I think at the present moment, we're simply stating, yeah, let's have it happen. And then that way Jessica can make that up for us, and then we can approve the wording at the next meeting.
Right, and then we can make the adjustments and approve with this, tweak of that, so.
And I have another, I want to add to Tim, unless Tim, maybe I missed it. There are 2 other facilities that provide gas. I know they're like co-ops or something in town. Are they going to be included on this? I mean, they're selling gas.
Well, that's something that can be in the wordage, and that, and so that's something we'll have to throw in there, and, yeah, and then if we throw it all in there, and for some reason we decide that something should be excluded or changed, then we can do that easily. It's a lot easier to take away. Anything else, anyone? Okay, so I'll call for the vote.
Lauren, yes.
Tim?
Tim, yes.
James?
James, yes.
Carolyn?
Carolyn, yes.
Gary?
Gary, yes.
And Greg?
Greg, yes.
All right, well, that ball's rolling. What you do with my agenda? Okay, so old business 7B, vacation rentals. All we're doing here is setting a workshop date, and didn't Krista have a suggestion for a good date?
The January 4th planning meeting, she said that we could do a workshop at the same time. We can move the planning meeting, which normally starts at 3:30 to a little later, if that works with anyone, but that's what her suggestion was.
In a date?
January 4th.
And what was the time again?
We can decide what we wanted, because they normally meet at 3:30, but she said we can meet it a little bit later if it works for other people.
I may not be able to attend. I don't know yet. On the 4th, I think I have something planned, but I don't know.
Anybody else? I know, James, it's hard for you without looking at your schedule, but.
Yeah, but I can tell you that the 5:30 far increases the odds than over the 3:30.
Okay.
Yeah, for me too, because I don't get out of school till 3:40.
Okay, so let's see if they'll compromise. We'll do their date if they do our time.
Okay, sounds good. I'll bring it to the organ. There you go.
Okay, so okay, so moving on, old business 7C, A-frame discussion. We got the letter from the Arts Council to not renew. It looks like the parks is moving forward. So the only question I would personally have is what can we do to help the Arts Council or to promote them? Because they did do a lot of work there and they do a lot for the city. So definitely want to make it. I don't know what we can do, but we sure are open for suggestions if there is anything that we can, or even if we have to open up a community building or something like that for your functions. I think that the council would be pretty amiable to that, just to put that out there. If there's any art council representatives here. So do we have Any discussion on that?
I don't think there needs to be really.
Yeah.
The dog, I wish it wasn't, they didn't take the 90 days that were in there.
There's not that much stuff in there that needs to take 90 days to get it, but I get the reason they're using their 90-day clause, but it is what it is. So
December, January, February.
parks and move forward and we'll be good.
Okay.
Mayor Cox, are we gonna make them whole for the money that they've spent in redoing the building?
I was assuming, what's that?
We offered that to them.
Oh, okay.
Parks had offered to try to reimburse some money, and then we got their letter and we're just letting them vacate. So
That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, they're taking their stuff out of the property. They're taking their.
obviously they did upgrades to the building and that'll stay, but all their personal items and all that stuff is all going to be taken out. And that's what we were trying to get from parks, like their chairs and stuff like that, trying to reimburse them, but they decided that that's what they would like to take. So parks will move forward with getting our own stuff.
Okay, that's good for parks, but we're talking about, we need to make sure that, in my opinion, that the Arts Council feels compensated for what they took out of there. And that's an easy question to verify. I mean, because the water under the bridge, but if we can avoid any more water, then we probably
We should see if they'd like to have a settlement of some kind.
Yeah, whatever we can do to, whatever we can do.
I mean, the Legion Hall is open, available.
And that's what I want to do, is we'll do what we can, we'll make this happen. Because we want the Arts Council support.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's out of the way. Water curtailment ordinance. This is an ongoing discussion. We did hear from John earlier about our situation now to where we can't pump water. One thing I will say that I still have an issue with in this ordinance is I think that head of public works or the administrator can notify the council. We can get a meeting that night or the next day if we have to declare an emergency situation. I think if the staff, I don't think the staff should have that responsibility on them because it could go south really fast. You know, if you declare it or somebody, it has to be noticed and I don't know, I'm not saying on a whim, but you know what I mean? It has to have the whole council to say, yes, it's an emergency or it just doesn't feel.
Only 2 days worth of water is pretty close.
Well, and that's probably considered a boil water notice at that point, you know? Yeah. Like if you have 2 days of water left, then we are, it's the equivalent of a boil water notice because you're pretty close to not having the pressure where you need it anyway. So. James.
So from my understanding, with an ordinance like this, we're setting up a criteria under which certain actions occur. So therefore, the council has already then made that decision by implementing the ordinance. So as long as the cause and effect are all very clear and when things are to take effect, then in my opinion, it should be a simple matter of the head of works and the city administrator both agreeing that the criteria have been met and then following the procedure without any interaction from the council. If the council disagrees with the decision, we can either have a special meeting or we can, overturn it at our next meeting or whatnot. But with the whole point of this is to be able to act with speed and precision in the event of an issue. And so I think, I would support the two of them agreeing the criteria is met and then moving forward on each of these.
What about splitting the difference? And I'm not saying this because I'm the mayor. I'm just saying it to keep the heat off the employees in that situation. And they shouldn't come back on them, but we all know at the end of the day, you never know what could come back on something.
Well, I think we left it that when we were going to set criteria with John, and so there were going to be trigger criteria.
Right.
And, so like if it was 2 days, he would have called you and City Works and said, we're not doing any more,
right.
meters right now or something.
And that is the first piece of the puzzle, I think, is for John to come with the new, with the new parameters of the winter, and we get that information, then we can talk about who declares it or who. I mean, we see that this is a conversation about who or how it gets declared, but we know we need to get it done.
Yeah.
So we'll talk to John about that. Was there anything else that anybody saw in there?
how about if we added you, the mayor, to the mix so that,
Yeah, no, that's what I mean, not me, just the mayor, but yeah, just to take the heat off of the staff, so they're not the ones saying, you're shutting off your water,
Yep.
I agree, Pat. I agree with what you said. We should take the heat off the employees and place it on the mayor and the council. I understand what James said about us setting the parameters, but I think we're the ones elected by the people, and we have to make the tough decisions. We shouldn't throw that on our employees. Our employees should give us information and we make the decision. That's my opinion.
And my opinion is if we're ever in a situation where John has to shut off the water, or if we have to shut off the water to preserve the tank, that just is what it is. That is outside of our best effort here. Some days you just have to shut the water off. Pardon that.
Absolutely.
So did you want me to add both mayor and city council to this?
It's just a conversation piece, mayor and or just to take the heat off you guys. So is there anything else we want to add to that? There was a sprinklers instead of sprinklers, like type thing.
And I changed, I think, Tim, you had said something about gardens and stuff like that. So I went through and tried to pull those out.
Thank
based
you.
on our conversation. So I just want to make sure there was nothing else that was missing either.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. I think people should be able to grow their food, and we have quite a few people in Port Orford that do grow some of their food products. So thank you.
Okay, so with that being said, we know we need a little bit more information. We can still read all the other stuff in here until that point.
I think my last question would be the surcharge. You had said not doing percentages or like 3 times or anything like that, that you just maybe just having a straight dollar value last time. So that was kind of the open-ended question that we had left with too. So
You mean for the penalty?
Yes, sorry,
Yeah.
for the penalty, yes.
And that is just like any other thing you write is where the teeth on it. But in this instance, it seems like when we have our sign up for water, you could write in a curtailment thing where if you go over this amount, and then you have the leaks, and that's, it's.
Well, we already give credit for the leaks if it's something that, so that's something totally different. We'll do credit for leaks once they're fixed and stuff like that. And that's not a problem.
Okay, so that is one thing we do need to consider, and you probably, well, I'll look around, but we need to consider what kind of penalty we're looking at if people do go over this curtailment plan.
So, Pat, I did have a question about that because so when the curtailment plan is set in place, let's say, I'm going to use this as an example, a single, let's just say a single old lady is at home and she decides she needs help at home, and she moves a family of, say, her son, the wife, and 2 kids into the house, and it goes from using, say, 2,000 gallons a month to going up to, which we talked about here, doubling and quadrupling. Just say it doubles, and we raise their rate. Is that fair to those folks? I don't know, because we will run into that situation, I think. It's a unique situation, but we're going to run into it. And if we set this in stone, we're doing nothing to protect those folks. So that's the one question I think we're going to have.
Well, on the water application, there is something in there that asks how many people are in that house in the household. So maybe when we can have, if something like that happens, then we just have to have it out there that they can notify us that there has been a change of people.
Okay. That works for me. The only thing is it says you were going to go back on history, and history with one person versus history with 4 people is a whole different story. So that's, if you've got that covered and you're going to change that, that'll work.
Okay.
And it's almost like, to be fair and not have to look over people's fences to see how many people they have, that we would just take our 3 days of water usage or whatever the average is for everybody, and then divide that by however many people they are, and everybody gets their equal share, regardless of what you are. I mean, I imagine it has to be different for commercial like that, but
we could figure, the hard part is that we don't we keep those forms that they fill out, but nothing is in the system with how many people. So we'd have to.
No, but we know how much water we sell and we know how many people we have. So that's the only two real numbers we can base it on.
Yeah.
But it also is skewed because you got rid of people. So.
Well, probably resident, well, it would only. Be
Yeah, you'd have to have
We wouldn't be
residential
talking-
and
we wouldn't be
commercial.
talking- Yeah, we wouldn't be talking commercial at that.
That's a whole other can of worms, because what's considered commercial. So, but there's gonna be people that cut corners, and but this is just this, have all the people that will do it, pump the brakes on the water as much as they can, and so, and that's like, and so, yeah, we need to penalize it, and that is a part of it, but I don't think it's the important part of it. The important part is getting the wordage in the process so that the people that are gonna do it start doing it as soon as possible. So we do need to think about the penalty side of it. Go ahead, Carol.
You know, when we had the water problem and we went on, where we didn't use as much water, I had 7 people in my home. And we cut our bill over $20 a month. And I have maintained that. I said, this is how we're going to do it from now on, because we don't want to waste water. Water is precious, and we don't need to waste it. And everyone should be able to cut back on water usage. You know, don't take no 20-minute shower. I time myself, shower, do my hair, everything I had to do in the shower, and I get it all done within 10 minutes. So.
Well, and we had someone that called too and asked if the city had those low flow things that we can supply or help people with. So maybe that's something we can look at too, and maybe we have some of those types of things, incentives, but.
We don't have enough time in the day.
No,
People can
but,
go-
well, we already do the irrigation meters though, so
Right.
it's kind of the same scenario in my mind, but.
True. God, I gotta get the irrigation meter this year. Okay.
We can
so-
hand those out. There are grants for those type of devices, and we can hand those out, to be honest with you. They're very inexpensive, but we can hand them out. I mean, it's as simple, like with an old toilet, as you put like a half-gallon jug of milk, a milk jug filled with sand in that toilet, and that displaces a half a gallon. That it's as simple as. We should have a workshop on it, actually, to be honest with you. It's so simple, but it is a double-edged sword, because when you cut use, you also cut revenue. So,
okay. Well, we know that we know the process that we're doing it, how we do it right now. We're working on this. We're gonna get some more info from John. We're still got the penalty side of it in our heads. So I think if it's okay with everyone, we can kind of move on to the funding update. And this is just mostly an update because we're changing gears, and this is what our new objective is to start rolling on some water infrastructure stuff, even if we only change out a few services a year, like that. Hopefully we can stay on it. So Jessica, this is all you.
Okay. So there's a lot of different ways I've been looking at different funding. One of them is through Monica at Curry County that we're using for the emergency mitigation plan. We included the water issue actually on our mitigation plan, because she thinks and knows that what'll happen is it'll actually give us a better chance to receive larger funds as the water infrastructure money comes available. So that's something in there, and that's something that Monica and I are going to start to work on those grant applications in spring of 2022 was our plan. And that was a few days ago that we discussed that. In your packets, there's also something from Civil West Engineering that I received on November 30th with regards to a COVID-19 grant that just came out actually for $750,000. It's not a lot, but it's something. And it actually specifically is for water infrastructure in there. And it's, I think it says we can only receive one grant per city, $750,000. And one of the things in the email is actually the city of Port Orford was totally named in there as an option to receive the funds due to the item that we have obviously in the mitigation plan, but also the lack of income, the income level that we're at. So there's 4 cities within the coast that were named, and we are one of them. So that was a good scenario. So I reached out to Marlin and asked how long it would take for the pre-application status. And he actually just today wrote me back with how long it would take an offer to do it for us to start the pre-application process with Civil West Engineering. So the cost that he gave me is between $560 and $850 for them to do the pre-application and everything for us for this grant for the $750,000. So that's something too. I think that we can probably vote on or something.
We don't need to vote.
Got it.
Yeah.
Consensus. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm just going to put the floor because it's not very much.
Yeah.
So now, this money, can it be used like how we have, the top of Coast Guard Hill, the pump station up there? Can that be like, hey, we can fix the Coast Guard pump station with this money? This is like directly.
Yeah.
That's how we'll want it.
That's how we need to do
have
it.
those things on the master
The
plan.
high priority of what's the worst parts, let's start there.
And that's one of the probably the biggest things for the master plan is to tease up those projects for, this funding is available. We have this, we know the basis of it. Because Coast Guard Hill, I think East Street was around 450 to 600, so that's pretty bad. And you can add a tank on the top so we could, then help that side of the town, blah, blah, blah.
So you said about $700 to get all the application stuff in and filling it all out.
Yes.
And we don't need to vote with consensus, we're good?
568.
That's with the, I
I'm,
don't see any reason to go.
please move forward.
Yeah. It's not. I literally just got.
James,
like an
Tim,
hour
do you
ago.
have any issue with that? We got a pretty solid consensus in here.
Yeah, no, I think we should move forward, and I think Greg is 100% right. We should point that money towards Coast Guard Hill Pump Station. I toured that with John a couple months ago, and it's ready to blow up.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, for 10 years, literally, Coast Guard Station has been the worst place. So, I mean, and even when John was talking, we have to get like custom manifolds and all the other stuff for up there. So I'd say that would be amazing if we get that rolling.
Well, and there's one more item too that I looked at, and that's the SDC fees. According to our municipal code, we can use SDC fees for capital improvement. And obviously the water infrastructure needs a capital improvement. The definition of it is. So, but the problem with that is you actually have to know, let's say you paid just make it straight $10,000 to have your lines put in. You can only use that $10,000 for your line. So we have to pinpoint where each dollar came from and where on each line. And then I'm working with John to figure out which lines are the worst. And then we're moving, kind of making a map basically of where all the money is for the capital improvements. And then based upon each line. Yeah.
Well, and that's what they talk about, like finding, block by block, finding the worst egregious blocks, fixing those, and then keep going down the line. So I'm down.
Yeah. So once we get something like that, then obviously city council has to approve any movement out of SDC funds. But that's one of the other things that we're looking at also too.
And at the end of the day, we're looking for like 30 million. Mm-hmm. So that's gonna involve a bond. So the more we can do taking big bites like this to get some confidence from the city, because the last bond we missed by under 100 votes, I think it was. So that's kind of our only angle. I don't see us holding our breath waiting for the $30 million. So we might as well go after all the little stuff we can. And luckily, $750,000 is a big chunk that covers a lot of those things on the master plan. So. So that's about it on that.
That's it.
So you'll get with.
Yeah, I'll get with Civil West Engineering. We're good.
Okay, old business. TLT grant approval follow up from July 2020. We had a proposal that came in, and the council wanted to go back and get a little more information on that, and so it sounds like we're gonna get that.
Yeah, I think Susan's going to do it. It's with regards to the TLT grant for the mural for the Salty Dog. Yeah.
Thank you. I was not part of Main Street at that time, so I'm just going with what the Karens have told me about what went on. And Jessica was so helpful to get us all this information about what you wanted to know about it. Looking at project, which is your page 102, there was
Dune, the artist, the local artist that's done the touch up on the whale murals and other things around town. She was the artist, and it cost $1,500 to have her do the Salty Dog mural. And the paint was another $350 or thereabouts. Everything else that's listed, down to refurbished Girl Scout murals, has not been done because of COVID-related issues, and they just never got going. They were going to have people make these garden pillar things, and I didn't even know what those were until they sent me a picture. So the Girl Scout murals were refurbished. Those were the ones that at one time were on somewhere, and then they were on the old Frank building, and then they now are on the fence by a Madrona RV. And then the fiberglass and everything below that does not exist and did not happen.
There you go.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm gonna
You
have
want
to
that
have
echo, huh? Okay, so adding those up, we would have $1,500 for the artist, $500 for the Girl Scout murals for $2,000. $500 was paid by Salty Dog for the mural on their building, and $400 came in from donations, other sources for refurbishing. It was probably Karen Auburn, because she would just pay for things right and left. She was a wonderful donator for the town. So $900 then was total of the projects that were actually completed. Mayor Cox wanted assurance that the mural would not be painted over. That was one of your objections at that meeting, I understood.
Well, it's because that had happened previously.
Right.
So that's, and it just.
Well, I have a very clever comeback for you, Mayor Cox. I know how you appreciate cleverness, all right? We have no way of guaranteeing that anything that Main Street does is going to last in perpetuity. The AARP benches have been the cause of some disgruntlement in town because landowners chose to do something else with them. There was nothing in the sales contract that said that those planters had to stay, so that the landowner can do what they want with something project that's done there.
Right.
So that,
But this was simply the council wanted a little more information that we never received, and there was no conversation, and now we're asking for.
But you haven't got to my clever comeback
Sorry,
yet.
I thought it was, okay. Sorry.
Longevity of a project doesn't seem to be the deciding factor in receiving TLT monies. Nearly every year, the TLT committee donates more than $5,000 to the 4th of July fireworks. We can assure the council that the murals will last longer than those.
Understood. Yeah, I understand what you're saying totally, but that the longevity of it, it was more of the issue of that happened previously and got, within a 5-year span, it had changed a few times. So the council just wanted a little bit more because we're spending other people's tax money. And now we're at a spot where I guess we're deciding if we want to pay this or not, regardless of how we got here. So that is the question on the table, yes?
Yeah, they were already paid the $1,159.
As we had agreed to.
As it was agreed to back when this was originally done.
Right.
It was just $1,000 that was in question at that point.
Right. Sam, do you remember
Jessica,
any of this more than I?
Did you miss that, Dave? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear Jessica.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so what I said is that $1,159 has been reimbursed to Main Street already. They were just missing that $1,000 based upon the last city council meeting that you guys had with regards to this particular application.
Okay.
So that's the whole problem with these TLT grants is we have to be accountable, and we have to be accountable from the start. I understand that the whole Main Street program has changed. We have new volunteers in there, and therefore, because of that, I'm willing to look past that and agree to this. But at the time, the council decided that the Salty Dog was up for sale, and there was concerns that the new buyer could paint over the mural. I totally get the firework issue, but the council agreed wholeheartedly that the fireworks were something that brought people to Port Orford, that filled up the businesses and bought hamburgers and tacos and fish and all that kind of stuff, gas. So it was a good thing in that aspect. Yes, you burn up the fireworks in a minute. I get it. But the whole issue with this is we were afraid that it was going to get painted over. It has not been painted over, so I can go along with it. I don't know what other councilors think about it. But we need to be more diligent moving forward with our TLT money, because there's only $10,000 and we need to get the best bang for our buck. Thank you.
And Tim did just make me realize that we could have picked up the phone and called too to follow up on it the same. So I would entertain a motion to either accept this or not.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and pay Main Street for that project.
I'll second that.
All right, well, we already talked about it. I'll go ahead and call for the vote. James?
James, yes.
Lauren?
Lauren, yes.
Tim?
Tim, yes.
Greg?
Greg, yes.
Gary?
Gary, yes.
And Carolyn?
Carolyn, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. I let you get out of here without stating your address, but you can say it from there. Thank you. Oh, I really got to pick up on that.
Yeah.
Okay, TLT committee appointment for Lori Preddy, who I've known as long as I've known anyone in town. So once again, I'll probably entertain a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to accept Lori Prouty for the TLT committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion for Lori on the TLT committee? Okay, Lauren, I'll call for the vote.
Lauren, yes.
Carolyn?
Carolyn, yes.
Tim?
Tim, yes.
James?
James, yes.
Gary?
Gary, yes.
And Greg?
Greg, yes.
Okay. Okay, Department of Revenue agreement for citation collections. You just need a motion to move forward with that?
So I can sign the contract. Yep.
Okay, has everyone had a chance to go over that and understand what Jessica needs? And if so, what's that?
They charge 10%, correct? Is that what it is?
I think it is.
We charge a 10% collection is taken, the money applies to the debts.
Yes, yeah.
They charge, so if it's a $1,200, they take $120.
And actually, it's actually charged to the customer, not to us. So we do not have that.
They pay on
Yes,
top
so they pay
of-
it. It's, yes, it's something that they pay. So
Okay, awesome.
I would make a motion to approve the Department of Revenue agreement for citation collections.
I second that motion.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just keep on voting. We're on a roll. Carolyn?
Carolyn, yes.
Lauren?
Lauren, yes.
Tim?
Tim, yes.
James?
James, yes.
Gary?
Gary, yes.
Greg?
Greg, yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, now this one. Hopefully this gets off the agenda. 8C, dark sky enforcement, abatement, and penalties. We obviously put our dark sky ordinance into place, and we are having some problem enforcing it. I mean, how many letters have we written now?
Before I even started, to be honest, because
No.
Shayla,
I don't think the sports one is all.
I have
Okay.
corresponded. Yeah, I have corresponded because Rowley has reached out to me shortly after the new ordinance started. But there's been no communication. I've gotten other complaints about other businesses, and all those businesses have already complied.
With a letter, so
With the
now
letter,
obviously we need to go to the next level, which I guess would be a letter.
Yes, yeah. And I know that you had sent, I think, a letter, I included it in here. It's been a while. So it's been something that's obviously, that was kind of my point of putting in there. It's been something that's been ongoing for years and years and years.
Okay, so this isn't an action item then. This is.
Can we enforce the citation?
Yes.
I would make a motion that we move forward on enforcement and abatement of and penalties to the fullest extent with the offender.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
I guess I have one thing to say. Isn't there a letter where he states that he is willing to comply if the council says so? Unless I misread or misunderstood. If that's the case, I don't think we should apply penalties. I think we should just throw the weight of the council out there. And as long as he does comply, as he has stated he has or will, then it shouldn't be a problem, right?
That's the case. I don't think that it was ever said that there would be compliance that I've ever seen.
I've never seen anything either.
They're given an opportunity to come into compliance before those citations are levied. Those penalties are levied.
Okay. But yeah, no, James, I never saw that letter, or we would be having a whole different conversation. I think that's kind of the issue right now is there's been nothing.
And Rowley has actually been in communication with them also, and by himself sending them letters too. So.
Well, and this is more than just the isolated issue. This is just the one at the top of the pile, because we do need to like show our teeth if we're going to do things like this.
I agree, because other people will stand fast as well.
This might make it easier since it's a continuing conversation, so it'll be good. Okay, so the motion on the table though. Any more discussion on that? All right, Carolyn.
Yeah.
James?
James, yes.
Tim?
Tim, yes.
Lauren?
Lauren, yes.
Gary?
Gary, yes.
And Greg?
Greg, yes.
All right, moving forward. Okay, so we just found out we were opening up the City Hall on the 1st January, and so we've been getting a bunch of questions about opening up the Legion Hall and the community building. So we are undeclared off of our COVID emergency, yes?
Yes, that is correct. The only way you cannot do anything is if you have a high transmission. And so we are not considered high transmission currently.
So if we had a motion to like open city facilities back up unless mandates change, or do we just say we open it back up? Because we always have to follow the guidelines, right?
Yeah, we're going to have to follow the mask guidelines, and what we can do is we can supply them to all of the facilities and whoever's going to run.
Okay, so
now I was told that the community building is condemned.
What?
That there's mold in the ceiling that leaked, and
I was never told that at all. And John and Toby were just in my office actually talking about getting a grant. So they didn't even say anything to me when they were just in there.
I think Vicki Young mentioned it to me.
I was never told. I don't know who. Okay. We'll have to get.
Might just.
Yeah, I can follow up with
sure
her. That's for sure. Yeah.
If there's mold in there, then it's a whole.
Because no one's been in there, I know, in at least a year
But
besides
that's the
Greg.
problem.
Yeah.
There hasn't been heat.
Well, yeah, I know, but Greg's been in a cleaning, so I'm not quite sure because he's been in a cleaning once a week. I did follow up with him and ask him that question last week. But I will follow up and just talk to her and see.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So if we already did our emergency or undeclared it, do we even need a motion to do this?
I kind of thought we talked about it already.
Yeah, so I kind of did too, but so we are just going to say that the Legion Hall and the community building are now open. If there's black mold or anything dangerous in those buildings, they won't be open.
That's correct.
But I think the American Legion is fine.
Yeah, like the Legion's been rented out. I know for Thanksgiving, there was 50 people there that had a community Thanksgiving. you know, it's already been rented. I don't know. Why that's been open.
That's actually fine. Well, the community, I know actually too, the fridge was broken over there. So there's been some repairs up there. And then also we need to work on getting a lock for the American Legion Hall for that one little area that's open. Yes. We need to just work on getting a lock or something like that there. So
Perfect. We'll get a lock. Moving on. That's on you, though. So
yeah, I know.
We're open.
Yep.
And we're gonna make this fast. I'm sorry that I added it midway through the agenda, but AE, the lamprey issue, my big question is, do we have a timeline that we have to meet? Because, Linda, you can go ahead and come on up now if you'd like. But what's our timeline? If we're getting the money from Applegate, does that mean we can wait for 2 years while we work on our dredging and try to get our impound correct first before we do anything to jeopardize it? And I only mean jeopardize it from having the capacity to clean it out how we need to and not be hemmed in. I don't mean this as not being supportive, but we have some big things to do. There's also a fish ladder involved with the repairs. So do we have any sort of a timeline on that? They're millions of years old, so they seem like they could wait.
The free money, I believe, has to be spent within a certain time, and that's why they donated it to us. She asked me for the parameters, and I said this is what Stuart Reed had recommended, and so he recommended spending it this year. So if we decide not to say yes to this, we probably lose that free money. The repairs are very simple. Lamprey they have suckers, and they need a wet surface that doesn't have right angles, and then more right angles, and then another right angle. So even if, say, we do this mitigation and then we need to dredge, the way that Stuart Reed explained that is like, so you dredge, you lose some lamprey out of this reservoir that you have brought in. You're still ahead of where you were before they weren't able to get over the dam. You're still able to take advantage of the filtration that they're going to do for us for free.
I'm not arguing with you by any means. I guess when you have 5 feet of silt, it'd be nice to get that down a little bit before they start doing it.
Right.
And can they live in our impound right now? How is that?
What he pointed out is the ideal habitat for them is, you guys are familiar with the reservoir up at the top of the main stem of North Fork. There's an area it's like an eddy. It's like an area where sand has built up. I was just up there doing the storm chaser, the collection, and that eddy is very obvious. So they would be in what is actually now, I would consider it the creek, not the reservoir. There's that kind of wetland area. So that's ideal habitat. Also on the southeast tributary, there's ideal habitat that's above the culvert. And I asked him about dredging, and he said, well, if they dredge, they dredge. It's not a listed species, so you're not violating endangered species law. If your actions in dredging, if basically on the upside of it, it would probably be a pipe that has a float on it so that it keeps it wet, and you just move that pipe out of the way. He suggested make sure you tie a rope around it and tie it to a tree on that side of the bank that's away from the road access, And then if you're dredging, you pull that pipe out of the way, you do your dredging, and then you put it back.
Right, I know the function and the mechanics of it. I was just worried about, are we gonna be cutting off our nose to spite our face if we do this before we dredge or before we do that? But if it's not an endangered species, then that opens up a lot. And we just, I mean, let's just do diligence is all. I'm not.
Right, it's a good idea, yeah.
By any means.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah. I do. And are there presently lamprey larvae moving up and down and lamprey coming up, or is it going to have to be, we're actually going to have to put lampreys in there to start the whole process?
There's oral history of lamprey being there. Rick Hazard, who's lived here, much longer than I have, so 30 or 40 years, had seen lamprey there. In order for lamprey are different from salmon. They don't always return to where they spawn. They're very opportunistic, but the way they choose where to go is the pheromones of the juveniles. So it's our plan in the next couple of months, when the water level is a little lower, to go out and do surveys. Tom is willing to work on that. And so if we are able to find that there are juveniles, then if they're able to get over the dam, then they can use all of that habitat above the reservoir.
That's cool. So if we think of it as a passage and not a pavement, it's good. Those are just questions I had to ask because I've been thinking about it. And so
it is passage. That's all we're doing.
So what do you need from us? I mean, obviously you need to do some more studying on your end too, or?
I basically need you to say, yes, the city wants to support this project and grant access to the area. And it would be best if we could have the participation of John, and of course, Jessica would be part of coordinating that, so that John is very able to say, okay, this is going to interfere, don't do this. Or, yeah, this will work.
Okay.
And another thing that would be important, and I think the right thing to do for the city, is to include the tribes in participation. The Siletz tribe is very enthusiastic. The Tututna people, it's important to their culture that there's lamprey. The Coquille tribe is very interested. They would like to have, COVID willing, some outreach so that we could educate the community about it. Tom has mentioned internships at the field station. And so they might be included in access to our watershed so that they can see what we're doing. And
okay.
I'll make a motion to proceed with the lamprey program.
Second motion.
What program is it? I mean, what?
Well, I think the only thing I want to do is just make sure that we always have a public works person with them on site, whether that be John or Wade or someone, at least with them on site, just for protection for us, because we have to be able to protect,
Right. We just make sure we have the key, the only ones with the keys.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes, that's it. That was my concern.
You think that's okay, Pat? Is that good, Sheila? Mm-hmm. I haven't seen one thing that's negative about the program, really.
Well, no, but that's why I put it on the agenda. I needed to know if it was an endangered species. I needed to know that it's not going to mess with the water system side of it. I love lampreys more than anybody, don't get me wrong. But, you got to worry about the other side of it too. So. Okay, well, there's motion. Did you get a second?
Yes, great.
Greg seconded. You're so quiet. You got put up the microphone. Okay. All right. Any more discussion on Tim? Tim.
The only thing I had, honestly, was should we just check with John on this to make sure that he's going to have the staff to help and all that kind of stuff, or do you guys just want to vote?
Well, John's been a participant in all of this, along with, I think Wade was up there with you the last time too. So we
Actually,
made sure we could work with them.
We scheduled that, remember, and we met, and then they had a water emergency and they had to leave.
Yeah.
So there was they weren't able to actually go up to the reservoir with us. But there was a quick discussion before they had to leave with Stuart, and Stuart was able to say, okay, this is basically what I'm going to do. And John was able to say, this is basically what the repairs will involve. And so it would be good to have more discussion with John as the details get, laid out. And I wish Stuart Reed could be here, virtually. His father is in hospice and I don't want to bother him right now with it. So,
Okay, no, understood.
Hey, so Pat, I'll chime in real quick.
There's none.
Go ahead, John.
I don't see any negatives here. It seems like a pretty simple 4 or 5 inch piece of PVC routed up along the edge of the dam to let them passage. So I don't see it'll affect this. And talking with them with the repairs that are coming up, they would be able to work around the repairs. So understanding that when we dredge, and if we lose a few, we lose a few.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of standing policy, not necessarily that we have to be there the whole time, but someone from the city should let them in. Like, we need to know when people are going into the watershed. I don't think that's a council decision or anything, it's just policy.
Right, absolutely.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and call for the vote on moving forward with the Lamprey project. James?
James, yes.
Greg?
Greg, yes.
Tim?
Tim, yes.
Gary?
Gary, yes.
Lauren?
Lauren, yes.
And Carolyn?
Carolyn, yes.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. I'll be in touch as, August, September rolls around.
Thank you, Linda, for all you do for the city.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay, now, 9A, do we have any citizen consideration? Mr. Palmer, please state your name and address.
I got the message.
I got it right there.
Yeah, I'm Tim Palmer. I live at 608 Oregon Street and have for about 20 years. So I'd like to request an official public process regarding the proposal that the city has received by Mr. Dave Bassett to build a 160-foot tall tower in the middle of our town. First, I'd like to commend Mr. Bassett on his verbal commitment to me and others that he will, quote, put a hold on his project until there is feedback from the community, and his commitment to avoid doing anything that lacks community support. He's told that to me. I think he's told it to others as well. However, his proposal doesn't include that. His proposal is to build this 160-foot tall tower in the middle of our town. So that's what we need to regard as the proposal. And not that I don't believe what Dave says, he's a friend of mine, but that's the official proposal that we need to pay attention to here. Simply taking that tower out of his proposal would solve our problem. I mean, the problem of many of us who do not, frankly, want this to happen. That would totally solve the problem. He will not do that. Well, he didn't agree to do that when I asked him. And I don't think he has done that yet. So that's a very simple solution. He essentially says he's not going to build it anyway. Why not just change the proposal and be done with this problem? So if there's anything the council or the city staff can do to persuade him to officially drop that tower from the proposal, we're home clean. There are a lot of other great things that can be done with that site that I think everybody in the community would support. Whereas now it just seems to me like everybody in the community is opposing what he's proposing. So unlike a lot of other normal planning proposals that go the route of planning project, this one has enormous consequences for our town. This would be the biggest, most consequential development proposal ever for Port Orford. It would change the appearance, the character of our town indelibly forever, like nothing else has ever done. It's super important. It would take away my privacy. My private land would no longer guarantee me privacy in our town. There would be tourists 160 feet up here watching everything down below, and they can't see in my house, but they can see my yard, my driveway, my street, my deck, my garden. It would be a major drop in the quality of life that we have here living in our town. There are a lot of other things wrong. I won't really go into these because I know we don't want to take time, but safety issues, wind, tsunami, earthquakes, birds, it's going to kill birds like crazy. Big wind towers have shown us that. Just a lot of reasons why, noise, a lot of reasons why this thing is bad other than just the huge change it would make to our town. So I'm requesting that the council require a public review process for this. Now, this seems a little bit complicated by what our lawyer has told us here, that you're not even allowed to talk about this issue. But to bar you from even talking assumes that this will be coming back to council for action. And we've seen no indication that it will be. I know there's nothing that requires that. No one has committed to anyone to doing that. So if you can't talk about it and it's not going to come back to council, theoretically you wouldn't be able to talk to anybody about anything because there's just no agreement on deck to bring this back to council. So I would plead with you to at least, if you can't right now take action to require a public process, or if you can't put it on the agenda for the next meeting and then do that, then at least please take action to require our city administrator and our planner to not approve this project until it comes back to council to consider this question of allowing your citizens some input on the biggest project ever to affect us in this town. So please, I don't know if it's complicated. I hope it's clear. I'm asking you to require a public process. If you can't do that, then require that the permit for the tower, really only the tower part of the permit, require that the tower not be approved until this comes back to council for your consideration. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate your attention this late hour.
Thank you. Any other public comment from the screen or? I'm sorry, you're gonna have to say your address too.
Did you remember it, Pat?
I get what you like.
I'm Ann Politis, and my address is 608 Oregon Street. And I also would like to not talk about the tower, but I want to talk about the process of it and echo Tim's response or Tim's statement that I think there's a really strong need for some kind of public process for this particular utterly unprecedented project in our town, and in fact would be on any other town on the entire coast of Oregon, certainly. And I just feel as though because the consequences of this would be so potentially great to our community and to residents, especially in the neighborhood of the 10MU zone and around that zone, it just seems like it would be so unfair to have one individual who's an employee make a decision and have no opportunity for the community to be able to put forth anything. And I think this particular project has shown us many deficiencies and problems in our planning process. From the problem of there being rumors about this and people freaking out and feeling really that the process is not transparent, that the process is unclear. And so I hope that in addition to finding a way for you guys to draw upon your authorities as people who have to take care of our town for our citizens, in addition to asking you to please create a public process, that we look at this larger question. And when there are, I mean, this doesn't come up very often, right? We have a way of going, but this is a really unprecedented thing. And there might be things like this that are coming down in the pike in the future with so much development pressure we have. And it just seems like there should be some way that citizens can say, or counselors can look at this and use your judgment and say, you know, this is one of these things where we need to have another layer here. It's not just going to be Crystal or a staff person who makes this decision. So thank you so much. And I want to, at the end of this year, also thank you all so much for your public service on our behalf as city council members. And I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
I'll give it this time. My name is Susan Russo. I live at 2286 Jefferson Street. I'm president of the Main Street Association, and last Tuesday at our meeting, there was concern not only with this project, but with the second Dollar General or general store, big corporate coming into Port Orford. Our entire body was concerned that we are now going down the road to looking like every other little town or every other town in the United States with its corporate big box stores and that sort of thing. I realize Walmart won't be coming here, but the question was not, well, the question was, is there a way to have a public process to protect the uniqueness and the individuality of our small town? Thank you.
Hello again. Tom Calvanese from 630 Kitchener Street here in Port Orford. And I guess I'm just going to actually echo what I've heard already. I think the folks who've already spoken on this have been pretty clear, and I agree with everything I just heard. I guess the only thing I would add to that, a couple of things I would add to that. One is that I guess if there's a concern about ex parte communication, my understanding of that is communication that occurs outside of public process. And a great way to avoid ex parte communication is to have a public process. So I think you're making a good argument for having a public process. And my understanding of what I just heard is that the planning director is currently reviewing this application, the application that most of us have been talking about, this 8th and 101 160-foot tower project. In terms of my reading of our code, the 10MU code, the 1712-090, seems to say that the planning director can be requested to make a determination as to whether that is a conditional or an outright use. And so I think that sounds like what's being requested. And if anyone is paying attention to this issue, I think they probably have found out that there is a lot of opposition. And I don't think it's reasonable or really proper to ignore that opposition. So at the very least, the hearing seems to be the right way to go. And the only other things I would add to that are, I know that this proposal was presented with sort of a multifaceted purpose. It's been called a tower, it's been called a plaza, it's been called a tsunami evacuation tower. And as I've mentioned in previous meetings, that Port Orford has a tsunami evacuation plan that was approved in January. And it actually has pretty clear guidance about tsunami evacuation. And it says two things. One, For the site, for the location of this tower, the recommendation is to vacate horizontally, which would take you up Oregon Street. And that would be at a walk, and that's been confirmed by staff at Dogami. So I think that that should be taken into consideration. And I guess the only other thing I would add is that one of the flaws I see in the process is that it hasn't been conducted in public. And so there's been some confusion and lack of information about what was actually being proposed. And it took a while to get that information to be made public. So I would just encourage you to really embrace transparency and open government. And when documents come into the public realm, they are public documents, and the public has a right to view those documents and express their concerns and their questions or their support. So those are all the things I have to say. I really appreciate all of you, the work you're doing, doing this on the end of the year and taking up all of the work, all the things that you're working on. I really appreciate it. I hope you really give this serious consideration because a lot of people are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so we hit our 2-hour time limit for needing a motion to continue, but I really don't want to cut anybody off. We got 5 people left in here. I don't want to
I'll make a motion to go ahead.
extend it. Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Greg.
Greg, yes.
Gary, yes. Carolyn.
Yes.
Lauren, yes.
Lauren, Tim.
Tim, yes.
James.
James, yes.
Okay. Do we have more public comment? Go right ahead.
I otherwise wouldn't remove this, but it's my first time here. I want to introduce myself so that you can see who I am. Good evening. My name is Brett Cecil. I live at 42764 Port Orford Loop Road. So I technically don't live in the city of Port Orford, but I'm part of the Port Orford community. I also want to thank all of you for doing this work for our city and for our community. I also want to extend season's greetings to you from my organization, the Curry County Democrats, of which I am chair currently. I had an opportunity yesterday to sit through the Board of Commissioners meetings, and the planning director at the county level made a recommendation to the board. And it had to do with them presenting citations to folks in the county when they've got something that's a little out of line that may need to be addressed, asking that there be a little time period put in it. So I'm speaking to process essentially, rather than handing someone a citation with a fine attached to it, to allow them a 30-day period to address that with the intent of applying compliance. We just want a good outcome through a process, something that sticks with our code or with our law, with our ordinance. And the commissioners adopted that, a 3-0 vote, if I'm correct. Don't hold me to it, but I recall all of them in discussion talking about if they adopted that. I think it's a wise thing. Part of it is to take down the temperature. I'm concerned with some of our public discourse, not only at our local level, but also our national level. And we get a little heated. People have an idea what they want to have happen. And right away, let's bulldoze to the front of the line and say what our piece is. Let's demand what we want to have happen. So on that point, I just want to ask that you review process, take a look at that, make sure that we all have an opportunity within the ordinance to make a presentation of our ideas and what we'd like to see happen in our community. So again, I wish all of you season's greetings. I appreciate you allowing me to speak to you. I'm always available if anybody needs to get in touch with me. Our office number, 541-412-3367, 412-DEMS. Thank you.
Okay. Any other citizen concerns? Considerations. All right, staff, you got anything else here? Counselors, okay?
I've got a little thing I want to read. I would like to ask the consensus of the council to move forward to look into ordinance changes in regards to providing for the community input on building proposed that would have broad impacts on the community interests, such as public safety, privacy, nuance, small town character, and other citizen considerations and values, and to tie up loopholes that allow individuals to exploit the intent of our ordinances. Though we need to modify our tools to protect the best interests of the community. So I'm just looking to begin a review of our ordinances and to bring them up to date, and to allow for more community input on big things. Like, we may not be able to stop some of the things already in the works, but in the future, to be able to just to have more input, like a lot of the people have stated today. So I picture it'd be something that would maybe go to planning. And
so I guess the cleanest way to do that would be if two other counselors want to put that on the agenda for next month, since we're just in considerations right now. So if
I'll support that.
I'll support that.
Okay, then we're good. That's all. Yeah, so that's on the agenda. Wait, unless,
No, I'm not so much on this.
oh, go ahead.
I think it would behoove the council to take a look at the governing land use documents that are in place. You have a comprehensive plan that is in place that probably needs some work. And you have your land use code that's in place, and your land use code sets out the differences between things that are outright allowed uses and things that are conditional uses. And so there are varying steps in that process to review those types of applications, depending upon what type of application it is and what zone it's in. But those are the current governing documents, and it takes a lot of work to change those documents. So those are going to be the first places that you're going to want to look. If you take a look at those and you do see that you want to do some updating and some revisions, which I'm sure you will, because they're old. They haven't been looked at in quite a while. You might also want to take a look and see if there are any grants available to do that, because it is expensive work. You're going to be paying your planner, and you're going to be paying for hearings and notices and things like that. And so that's something that you have to be prepared for. And it's probably why it hasn't been done, because it does cost funds to do.
it just seems like we're at a junction in the community that it might be time to do that.
Or theoretically, this could be a totally isolated incident that is just the crux of it.
Well,
You know what I mean?
We're
Like,
having the Family Dollar come in, so does everybody want just a bunch more of those type of things coming in?
no, but see, and that's always the rub for us, is because there are processes and there are instances in the process that things aren't going to be perfect. And so as the mayor, I'm like, well, I agree or I don't agree, but this is my playbook. This is the process that we have.
We're talking about changing the playbook.
Exactly, but that doesn't mean that gives us leeway to change the process that is already happening, or like if there is.
We're talking about the future.
Yeah, and that's the kind of things that.
We're protecting the
Exactly.
future of the.
And that's why so it's gonna be on the agenda. We just need to, you need to talk with me this month and get it finite or get it down to something tangible. We can't have it, like, you know what I mean? Like, we need to start somewhere, and Shayla's advice was a good start, and it's a huge thing. So hopefully we can get to a spot this month to where we can have some sort of conversation, like maybe some moves can happen to where the conversation can change, because our hands are tied right now. We can't talk about the things that we need to talk about because of process. So we'll do the best we can, and that'll be one of the aspects of it, is to get that conversation started. And maybe some of these conversations are started, should be up front, so that if there's discourse or if there's an obvious, oh, maybe that town doesn't want this, then, because it's all about timeframes. And I know the council and myself don't want to be anything but transparent. And sometimes it's just impossible not to seem like that because of this or that, or because for some reason we can't have a conversation about things. And it's a little above my pay grade, but it's good. We all want to be transparent. Hopefully this is moving in that direction. And
so, I just want to talk about the process a little bit, not specific to this application, because I don't actually know very much about this application, to be frank. But normally what happens is an application for a land use proposal comes into the city. It first goes to the planner, and the planner checks it to make sure it's complete. Then depending upon what type of application it is, it then goes to the planning commission to make a decision. If the decision of the planning commission is appealed, it then comes to the city council. There would be a hearing at the planning commission level, and then there would be a hearing at the city council level for an application that went that route. And the reason why we don't like the city council to be involved is because the city council essentially becomes the judge of that application. It's called a quasi-judicial application, frankly. And so when it reaches the council, you all need to have the same information, and you need to make your opinion based upon the criteria of the application. But there is public involvement in that process.
But
not in this process, is what we've been told, because it's an outright lease into session.
I'm not going to comment on this.
No, that's because, unfortunately, well,
Can you tell us what the process will be? You said there will be one. but
I don't. I'm not privy to that at this point in time.
Who is and who decides?
well, at this point, we are at the juncture where, in a situation like this, that the planning director would probably pass it on to planning, correct?
Not necessarily, because it's a site plan review. So the completeness checklist is what's being done in particular.
I mean, this is,
So then it goes
I
to
know,
the
this
site
has been
plan.
the very early stages of this.
That's correct.
I think that
It's
there's been
very
a lot
early,
of
so.
communication out in the public area, but that may not be what the city has actually.
Tim, go ahead.
Hey, so my input is this. I understand the application for the 160-foot tower. I personally spoke to the individual. He's willing to work with the community to come up with something that's a little bit better than a 160-foot tower. But I do understand the concern. But when it comes to a Dollar Tree, I get it. Some people don't want it. Some people do. Is a Dollar Tree better than a dirt lot that's been sitting there for 60 years? Yes, in my opinion, it is. I agree that some people don't want a Dollar Tree, and I understand that. I completely understand it. But if it follows our guidelines of conditional or outright use, the folks that buy the property have the right to build whatever they want as long as they meet our guidelines. So we're being asked to reinvent our guidelines. And that's why I asked that. I'm glad that somebody asked Shayla to speak, and Shayla spoke about it. It's very costly to change those guidelines. But I remember when there was a huge group of people, and when I say huge, it wasn't that huge, a group of people that thought the Dollar Tree was going to be the worst thing in Port Orford. Trust me, go sit in the Dollar Tree parking lot. That has helped so many community members in Port Orford, regardless if you like the Dollar Tree, you like corporations or not. It has helped so many people in our community to buy goods for, at the time when it was coming about, I said 30% less than what we could get now. It helps people. So I get it. I understand. But I don't think the Dollar Tree is going to be the worst thing in the world that's happened in Port Orford. That's just my opinion.
All right.
So I guess what I'm saying is sometimes we just don't have complete control over everything that happens in Port Orford. And yes, there is a vocal group that wants to control everything, but there's also this other group called the silent majority that may want the Dollar General. We have to find the common ground there.
See, and then not any of the instances we're in, but there is the safety and the privacy and issues that come up with certain outright uses, like that, like we're dealing with I can't talk about it. This is really tough, but I mean,
Well, and just, there's been nothing turned into the city with regards to Dollar General or anything like that. I can be completely Dollar Tree, whatever the one it is. Nothing's been turned in. There's nothing that's been, even, I actually found out from on Facebook, so I'm just saying.
the moral of the story is it's really hard as a council not to react to things. It's hard to be proactive to things, especially when you have this super isolated incidents that probably wouldn't happen, might not ever happen, but it's a possibility. So
But then all of a sudden we have a 160-foot tower and they said that, well, why worry about it?
Exactly, that's the situation we're in right now.
Some of us are worried.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and it was written 15 years ago when it was a different world, and maybe people want a bunch of 150-foot towers in 20 years, but we are where we are now, so that's why we just have to zero in, figure out what we need to change, and hopefully we can come up with the outcome on this particular situation that we can't talk about. There is opportunity for public outreach, though, not through us, but there has been an offer of public communication, but we're not dealing with facts. We deal with black and white motions, yes or no. So everything right now is kind of a gray area about this particular incident. And we'll know more next month. I'll do the talking I can.
My recommendation to the council is to take a look at your zoning code and see what those outright uses are. Because those outright uses generally do not come before the planning commission. They're signed off because they're allowed to be constructed. And so go through your zoning code and look at what those outright uses are and see if they're uses that you can live with or not. And if they're not, then you have a starting point as to where to make changes.
Perfect. Thank you.
So maybe my suggestion then, if we're going to put it on the agenda, is, if everyone wants to go ahead and, I can print the municipal code for that, and then everyone can kind of have their 2 cents. We'll put it in the whole packet and we can start from there. If that's what everyone agrees to, I'm fine to do that. So,
but I know we want it on the agenda and you've got the 3 people, but please start with this particular thing. And then we can go case by case. But if we just say we need to review our outright uses, then I don't want to say we don't have more. Never mind. Yeah.
To go on to another study.
Yeah.
I am getting more concerned about the parking. We tried to get a thing through before, and now the place is starting to fill up. We're getting lots that's sold that's been here for many years, and no one's ever did anything with them. But if we don't start, if there comes to be hotels or anything like that, if you don't make those people put in parking, they won't. They happened in hotel. A big hotel went in, and they didn't plan for any parking at all.
Yeah, and I know we're covered on the 10 and U, but that's not necessarily the other zones for parking. Don't want to make assumptions, but.
But we really need to look at that maybe.
Okay. We can do that. I can add that to the list. So fun.
Okay.
There's all the things that the city needs to.
We need to update the whole code.
And that's why we need to just pick our battles.
Yes.
We need to get our water fixed while we do all these other things until, I'll keep telling them one bite at a time. Great.
So our Department of Revenue contract that we have, obviously this money that's coming in that we haven't had money or earmarked for, is there a way we can set some of that aside to hire a grant writer for the city to get these millions of dollars that are just sitting here waiting for us? Because it hasn't been used. I mean, the money, it was never earmarked in a line item that said, it's a revenue, it's not a tax item. So how do we start that process? Because I think we're all in agreement here as counselors that we need a grant writer here. We're missing out on millions of dollars for this town.
We look at our timeline and see if it's sensible to do an amended budget, or if it's like, oh, it's going to be 2 more months until we do our regular budget, then we just accept it as a budget. So the only thing is how long is that supplemental budget gonna take? And is it worth it for us to do it? Because it is just a supplemental, and I think if we have the money in the bank, we can do that.
I would like to look forward, look into that.
And under that line of thinking, we need to look at the line items we do have to see if there's anything we can kind of, do that fancy.
We keep hearing about grants. And
Right.
we never turn any grants in for this city, for parks, for anything else. And she's doing such hard work trying to get money that we don't have. If we can use some of that money, $20,000, $30,000 to hire a firm
Yeah,
to get
totally
us,
agree.
I think it's the best.
Might not
request
even
for the
have
city.
to be a firm. There's a lot.
Oh, but you see what I'm saying, though. There's a ton of
Yeah.
people, we have money that I think that we isn't earmarked for that we really sort of maybe need to push into an earmark for something like that.
Yeah, and that's, yeah.
What's the process?
Yeah, how do we start the process, sorry?
For a supplemental budget?
To hire a grant writer
Yeah,
by using that money?
We have the money somewhere, then we
just bring it up the next
But it has to
meeting?
be in the budget, like it has to be part of the accepted budget. That's why I was saying if we had anything else. in
So
mind.
when do we start the new budget? Is that next? Is that
It's gonna be
April?
in February, the new fiscal year is July. of
Yeah.
this year, But the budget process is gonna start like February, March area.
So we could start, that's why we need to figure out how long.
But then again, we're gonna miss out on all these deadlines for all these other grants that, we're missing out on. We've already missed out on so much money over these years by not having a grant writer for this town.
If it was the timing wise, if we could just get it started.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. 'Cause we're gonna keep missing all these deadlines that we're gonna hard miss.
Okay, I don't even have to ask, we don't have to have it in the agenda next month, do we? Yeah.
We'll find out. Find out. We'll get
We
to
don't
it.
have to do the land trade
Right. That's right.
presentation. What was the other thing we haven't
We'll probably have another TLT appointment.
Okay, so nothing too big.
Vacation
So we should
yeah.
put acquiring a grant writer on there. I'm sure we could get 3 people, and which would involve, do we probably need to do the supplemental budget if it's worth the time frame?
And I will do an analysis too, based upon savings that we've probably had and or money that we've gotten through other funds that were not in the budget. I think is probably an option too.
And if we did want to get the ball rolling, we probably, like if we had a specific grant we were going for, we could make a motion to pay someone to do this grant, not to exceed this amount of money, so we can get the ball rolling.
The Parks Department has like
Because
4 that we'd
otherwise-
like to submit, you know what I mean? But there's like 4 for parks that we would love to submit, we just don't know. you know.
Right, but that's
That's what I'm
where it
saying.
makes
So
sense.
we already have
The
some,
Parks
you
have
know.
to have a line item in there to, like if the parks have line items too, so you're gonna have to pay for that grant writer.
Instead
On
of
the budget,
city.
you know what I
Instead of the
mean?
city.
Huh?
Instead of the city fund.
Well, the city is, but it's like parks will be paying the general funds, and that's all the internal controls is the only fund that makes it an
Checks
issue.
and balances.
Everybody's for it, everybody wants grant writer, I think there's merit to it, so.
Because otherwise we'd have to wait to hire somebody until June, right?
Yeah, and that's when the starting process would be, because that's when the budget would be approved. If we approve the budget, then we can start using that money, you know what I mean?
Well,
The
no,
budget doesn't start till July.
Well, but still, that's
So
what
that
I'm
would be
saying.
when the next budget period starts.
So if there was any way to get it started sooner than that, that would be.
and that might be finding a grant we want to go after, and then putting a bid out for, hey, grant writers, how much you're gonna charge for this, and then we have this much in contingency or whatever it is, and we can pull the trigger on that. But if we want to actually hire someone, that will be the next year's budget cycle, in my opinion, to do it clean. So the first thing is to come up with the grant that we want the grant writer to write, and then the other stuff is just details, so. For parks.
We'll have the water infrastructure.
Yeah, Jessica's got
That
some for
big
the water.
infrastructure
Yeah.
that I'm working on.
That should be,
That should be the
okay,
priority.
let's go with that. Let's just go with that. We're looking for a grant writer for that grant, and if you can get it in a month, come back to us with some bids
Got it.
or some quotes, but,
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
okay, any other concerns? That was kind of a conversationally concern. Mr. Palmer? Sure.
Back to the tower. The, it's obvious that there's a lot of uncertainty about the process here. And we don't really know what the process is. We don't know what's going to be decided by the planner, whether it goes to planning commission or not. Meanwhile, one scenario is the plan could simply be approved. If they decides that nothing else is needed. In the meantime, we as citizens are boxed out because there's no public process from participating officially. And now we learn that we can't even talk to you people about it. And yet there's no agreement that this is coming to the council. If you would agree to require that this come back to the council, then it would make sense that you should not be talking to any of us. But that's not the case. So make that the case. Require that the tower, come back to the council for consideration, and then none of us will talk to you. It's a deal. But if you can't do that, you're just holding us in the dark with a process that's opaque to us, that does not allow any participation about the biggest question affecting our town and our lives. True, there may be, it's a use that may be permitted outright, and so we go from there. We take other measures to try to have concern. But all I'm asking here is that a decision not be made until these questions are resolved. So I'm asking the council to please require that a decision to approve this tower not be made until we have a public process and can get us better answers about all these questions.
Can we do that too?
I don't even think that the application is complete.
It's still in the completeness checklist phase. And unfortunately, basically that's where it is. So we have to just follow the rules that are already in place too, just like you stated. So we just have to follow that process that's already in there.
But what that means to us is that it could be ruled complete, it could be ruled to not involve a process, to not go to the planning commission and be approved without any further consideration by you, by us, by the planning commission, by anybody.
By the ordinances that we have to work with right now, unfortunately, that's all. By the ordinance that we have to work with, that is an exception that was allowed.
Yes, you are correct. That is what we are up against right now. Because of the way that the zoning and everything is written, it left that open.
That's why we changed the ordinance and all the work was done, but this got in before that. So it goes to that exception, which doesn't offer any process. There's no legal.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I know. You don't even have to say, I know. We're getting there. Because it's hard. It's very hard not.
And I understand, I appreciate everyone's concern. I agree with you, but we're dealing with the process we have in place. I don't think this application has even been deemed complete, so we don't actually know the process we're following yet. We're gonna follow the process that's been approved. Because that's how the process that we have to. That's the law.
And all I'm asking is that a decision not be made until that is all clarified and the public has a chance to respond.
Unfortunately, the code does not necessarily deem that okay based upon the different things that happen. So it totally depends, like Sheila said, what the process ends up being. If the process ends up being the one of them that means that the public does not need and have any input, then we have to follow that and sign off based upon the code that's already in place.
We can't just change the code without going through the process.
Yes.
Okay, so that means we have to go to a different option, which means it's going to be conversations, person to person, outside of this. We're going to walk away. People are going to think that I don't want to be transparent. It's part of the job. It just is what it is. But I grew up here. I want a wooden dock. I don't want big stores. I want 900 people. It just is what it is. So we're bound by the process, and all I can say is I'll do my damnedest to try to remedy before the next meeting, and I know that our time frame in that 30-day window is safe from anything happening. And that's the best I can say of things I shouldn't say. So, sorry, James, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I knew what you were gonna say. So, but if it wasn't pertaining to getting off the rails, then I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Go ahead.
Well, I actually just, other than the obvious there, there's a little bit of trouble hearing people with the microphones. So I wanted to bring it to your attention. It's really important that you not be looking at the person next to you when you're talking. And I know it's tempting because, Shayla, you're talking to Pat and Jessica as well. When you do that, we can't hear you because it doesn't go into the microphone very well. And then I also wanted to mention that not to single you out, but Carolyn, it's been hard to hear you the whole meeting. So you might need to bring your microphone closer to you. Being remote like this, it's really aware to me.
It is, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then I have a counselor's concern if you're ready for that.
Yes.
When I started, when I was asked to run for city council, because this was not something I chose, I was asked by a good number of people to do so. One of the things that was the goal was to take a look at the ordinances that we have and try to target them for review. And I know everything's just been so busy, but I look back at how long I've served and we've yet to do that. So the discussion we've had today is really good. And I want to encourage that to continue at the next meeting. And then of course, my other reason was to continue to establish good protocols for our meetings and to kind of shore up our process. And I know we've become very relaxed, and I'm okay with relaxed meetings, but to a certain degree, we have to try to keep things moving along, especially when the council does vote to exceed the normal time limit that we've agreed on. We really should try to keep it to a minimum and keep it moving along. To conclude on a good note, I think that we've all done a really good job as a council and have been moving things forward, whether I agree with them all or not. We have made progress, and that is a lot better than a lot has happened in the past. So that's good. And so good work. Keep it up. And happy holidays and happy New Year.
Thanks, James.
Thank you, James. You too. Okay, and I think that'll wrap us up. So happy holidays to everyone. Thank you for your public involvement. Very high on the list of worst meetings ever because of being bound by processes that sometimes, I understand where everyone's coming from, and I'll leave it at that. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Cindy and I are
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Thanks, Laura. I didn't hear everything, but thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, she said you're going down to India. We're heading towards Kentucky, but we have to go down through California.
I regret having to go to California, but it is what it is.
Have a good trip.
Hopefully we can keep Oregon from turning into California. That's all I got to say.
Well, the only reason I'm having to go is because of the darn weather. Everything's closed.
It is. Snow on all the highways. It's not good.
Crazy. Anyway, have a good trip. John, you and your wife, have a good holiday.
You too. Everybody have a great holiday.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah. planning to move their business code. They're going to be big.